And Raisins has been a standout Alistair player for me over the years, so maybe we see something similar from here. But we are into Champion Select, ladies and gentlemen. Cassiopeia banned already.
Yeah, unsurprisingly, Cassiopeia taken away there. Krogson has been absolutely dominant on that champion, so not surprised to see the Snake Lady deleted, as well as LeBlanc, though. I can't say I was expecting a LeBlanc ban to come out.
No, I mean, Zyron might be a good LeBlanc player himself. Sometimes you usually see LeBlanc as a targeted ban because, like you said, not super... Oh, we're just going to get a reset here. I'm assuming picks and bans will be the same from there. Yep. So, therefore, Na was the second ban for Last Remedy, I believe.
And then TCA banned Tahm Kench as well.
Yeah, so Tahm Kench obviously targeted at Nutri, one of his best supports. You can also play it in the top lane as well. But I would say more to be on towards Nutri. Me and you were discussing Nutri's support champion pool, and you mentioned Tahm Kench is still pretty up there for Nutri. So,
and I think as well, Tahm Kench has been banned in every game of the Premiership. So
okay,
far.
Wow.
He's just kind of too obnoxious to deal with. Yeah. I think most players at this point are just looking at Tahm Kench and saying, you know what, nah.
It's interesting because you don't see him that much in solo queue these days.
No.
I guess it's more of a coordinated champion that you want to take off the roster because obviously his ability to protect a specific carry is fantastic. Na is a ban that makes a lot of sense to me here, just because he is essentially almost 100% pick ban top lane right now, just because of how dominant he can be. I've actually been seeing a lot of Jarvan the 4 come into top lane with Ignite specifically to deal with Na, but obviously in team play, Jarvan the 4 full AD makes a little bit more of a risk to be taken. So Na going off the table opens up that top lane champion pool a little bit more now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see whether we have any Trundle coming in the top lane. We've seen Trundle last week in the hands of Nutri in the support position, but I know in terms of the global scale, in terms of tier lists and things, Trundle is heading towards the top of those tier lists. He's often in the S tier now for the top lane. And, you know, especially when you're in a meta where there are tanky champions, Trundle always finds himself there just because of that ultimate.
Exactly. Trundle will always become relevant during tank metas because of his ultimate and his ability to shred defenses. When you get more carry-orientated top laners, Trundle is still very good against heavy AD carry top laners because he can steal that AD from them with Rabid Bite. However, generally, when you get to a more carry-centric top, you generally tend to see less Trundle because he becomes less effective. So it's like a swing and roundabout thing with Trundle. You don't actually need to change him, he just evolves with the meta as well. Braum locked in immediately for Nutri, but we're going to see Jet on one of his most infamous champions here, Rek'Sai locked in, and it will be a Karma too.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with this Karma, whether it's going to be support, potentially mid as well. Like, Karma mid is kind of a thing at the moment, so
absolutely
would not be surprised to see that go in the hands of Krogson. It's kind of a different playstyle, though, to what I'm used to seeing out of Krogson. I mean, both Cassiopeia and Syndra are target bans towards Krogson right now. That's the kind of mid laner he loves to play. He loves to be a complete lane bully, which Karma does play into, but she's less of like that. She doesn't have that same kill pressure that other mid laners have.
Absolutely. Actually, Karma generally played as a little bit more of a utility mid laner, which is why I wouldn't be surprised to see her go bot. A lot of the builds that I generally tend to see from Karma these days is Athene's into Ardent Censer sometimes, and you go a little bit long that path, and your shield is ridiculous in terms of its utility as you go on.
Mini Sivir.
Yeah, mini Sivir. Your heal you get from it as well after applying damage with your Q. Actually, you know, she provides a lot of utility, but the utility, I think, is sometimes found better in the bot lane. You can actually go Athene's on Karma in the bot lane if your gold income is ripe enough, and then obviously you still have the effect of being able to be aggressive, but also actually adding that utility of a heal to your kit too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it mid, like you said, but also can flex into that support pick.
Well, we've got the Echo locked in here, and that's almost definitely going into the hands of Rifty in the top lane for Last Remedy. And as well, we're going to see the infamous AD carry Toaster. 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm curious to see how this one's going to pan out, because I know Smiley has been spamming tweets about how strong this guy is right now, and I don't know, I'm still not sold because of the lack of mobility. I think it's very much down to how well you can play as a team.
Absolutely. Now, also, Jhin does get mobility as the game goes on, because every time he critical strikes, I believe he gets a little bit of mobility in terms of his kit. You actually don't use him as a traditional AD carry, though. He's never been used in a traditional AD carry role. Especially with Echo, it's all about zone control. He sets up fights, Echo throws down parallel convergence, you immediately force the enemy team to react around obstacles that you've set up for them, and then you throw down that ultimate, which has had its execute damage reduced, but it's still devastating if it hits. So I've also seen people pick up Ghostblade first on Jhin. That has been the popular build recently. That adds a little bit of his mobility to his kit, gives him that little bit extra in the tank. But like you said, you don't play him as a traditional AD carry anyway. It's all about the ability to zone control, especially with Echo, and also find all-ins, which may be why we're seeing this Castin and also Graves. Look at that composition coming through from Last Remedy.
Yeah, this is a very squishy composition, but also one that will blow someone up in a split-second flat. But before we go straight into the compositions, I do want to take a look at the top lane matchup that we've got. Fiora up against Echo, and it's Rifty up against Yopper. Now, both of these top laners have been very dominant forces. However, we have very small sample pools of what we've seen out of them. You know, Rifty has been a player for quite a while in the UK scene. He did have a break, but he was in Infused like over a year ago, and then he came back and he was in Manalite last year. This guy is a very, very dominant top laner, and we've seen him on Echo last week, and he did a very, very good job on it.
I'm wondering if we should call him Risk It now.
I don't know. I feel he's still called Rifty on Twitter.
He's still called Rifty. I mean, I'll always know him as Rifty.
I'm going to stick with Rifty, unless he tells me otherwise. Rifty, if you want me to call Risk It, just let me know, but I'm going to call you Rifty.
So this is an interesting top lane matchup. Echo has probably been the most contested with Gnar in the top lane for quite a while now. Echo goes Triforce, then goes a little bit tanky, sometimes Dead Man's Plate after that. It becomes very difficult and obnoxious to deal with. Almost unparalleled in terms of 1v1 potential. His ability to get onto ranged heroes in the top lane, as also get to the back line and be a nuisance, is mental as well. And his split push is still fairly solid. But as the game progresses, I actually think Fiora will potentially outscale, especially if you can time your riposte, because I think you can riposte parallel convergence.
I'm pretty sure you can,
if you time it incredibly well. Usually you can see him when he E's, you can try and riposte when he uses his E, and then he jumps in, and hopefully you riposte it. And then you also stun him, and once his stun down, actually it comes down to a point where Fiora just wins that duel. It's all about dodging that stun though. If you get locked up in that stun, you may receive too much damage to come back from. But if you can even block or even get out of that stun, which with lunge is pretty easy to do, you have the potential to win in a 1v1.
And I think a lot of that as well is just Fiora matchups in a nutshell, right? If you can riposte the right ability, then you've got a good shot. But if you miss that, if you can't dodge the stuns, if you can't dodge the CC, you will be in trouble.
We have Anivia.
Yes. That was the next thing I was going to bring up.
I'm just wondering, I might be out the loop. Is that Rayamort? Has he been renamed from Rayamort?
I haven't been told that it's Rayamort.
I don't want to assume. I might have to ask Frozen.
I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's not. I think Krogson is a new player to the UK scene. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that it's Rayamort.
I don't believe either, but I think the Anivia pick is the only two people I've ever seen pick Anivia in professional settings in the UK have been Frozen Dawn, who casted last week, and Rayamort. So for people who to go back towards those picks, you know, you always think, is something going on here in terms of maybe this person's renamed. However, what Anivia provides has always been up there, but never quite S tier, especially with the changes to her Glacial Storm. It made her a little bit more difficult to make work. So I'm interested to see, because this is going to be zonal control versus zonal control. Now, if you get Glacial Storm up when the ultimate from Jhin comes down, Curtain Call, and then when Parallel Convergence is there, Glacial Storm comes up and maybe you're able to work around it. You then either force them into Glacial Storm to do what they want to do, and with the wall, you split up a approaching team, because this is an interesting mechanic here, Munchables. What will happen here is Curtain Call will open up. I'm doing the hand signals just so you can see.
Yep, I see it. Yeah, I can picture it in my mind.
So Curtain Call opens up, and then you've got Echo and Kassadin, and even Graves to an extent, who will jump in. They'll try and get something achieved with the engage potential of Curtain Call. Anivia, woo. Lock off 3 members, Glacial Storm comes down. You actually could even force a 3 versus 5 where Jhin, with his lack of mobility in general, can't catch up to the rest of his team. And unless if he's not getting anything done with those Curtain Calls, then actually you might be able to get a re-engage from TCA here that suits them very well. The only issue is Fiora very rarely likes to team fight. Fiora will be sat in the top lane or bot lane or whichever lane she'll be in, split pushing to death, because that is what Fiora does, and that's what Fiora always has done.
But at the same time, the TCA roster actually kind of plays into that. Having that Anivia for just unlimited wave clear, they can hold onto these towers, and so long as they don't fall behind, I think that might be the strategy that they're looking towards.
And also, their disengage is very good. Both Jet and Karma provide an element of disengage, because Jet can disengage himself with his tunnels, and then Karma, with her Mantrid E, everybody gets that mini Sivir ultimate to get away from an engage from Curtain Call. So they have the tools here for TCA to deal with what Last Remedy are going to throw at them, because Last Remedy have this almost one-dimensional composition where they either get a pick with Parallel Convergence or somebody, Braum or Echo can do a sort of pick strategy there, or they just open Curtain Call, go all in. because that's kind of where their composition is running through here. You have the split push of Risk It on, or Rifty on Echo here, but obviously as the game progresses, Fiora will become the queen of that scenario, and I'm not sure if Rifty will be able to keep up. So I like TCA here. I think they've thought this out very well, and Last Remedy, having had an indication as to what was going on in TCA's camp, have got a composition that, while it can do very well against TCA in the right situations, like an all-in against the Nivea is super strong. You know,
absolutely.
Very, very slow. But if TCA play it correctly and they don't get too far behind, I think this could swing either way much. I don't think this is a one-sided draft as we maybe were expecting.
And I think as well, one of the massive factors is when you look at the draft coming out from Last Remedy, it's one of those all-or-nothing drafts, right? If they get ahead in the early game, and I assure you they fully intend to, that is exactly what we've seen out of them in previous games. If they do manage to get that lead, they will just run away with it. And there's pretty much no stopping that kind of composition. However, if they can't get that ball rolling, and if they do fall slightly behind, they're really going to struggle to get things done.
My big pivot point here, Munch, is Anivia. Because Anivia is classically quite weak to Kassadin, especially post-6, weak to Echo, and anybody else that can gap close to get on top of her, because she really relies on her ability to slow rather than her ability to close gaps herself.
Yeah.
So you shut down the Anivia, then you shut down a large portion of what TCA can do to prevent the engage from Curtain Call and the all-in from Last Remedy. If you leave Anivia by herself, doing her thing, gets levels in that Frost Wall, then you're going to be in a position where actually it's going to become more and more difficult to all-in, especially if you don't punish her before Rod of Ages. If you don't punish her before Rod of Ages, she becomes a lot harder to get to deal with and get down fully. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Last Remedy push onto this Anivia and really start to punish this mid lane.
Yeah, and I would expect that to be the focus, and it's going to be down to Crocs and whether or not he can survive that. But we've seen in previous weeks, or last week, the one game we've seen of TCA, but also in the Contender Series as well, and at Insomnia, Krogson is the kind of player that revels in those skirmishes. He's more than happy to have those 2v2s with the jungles and mid lane, and obviously Anivia doesn't really lend to that playstyle, so I'm curious to see what he can achieve on that hero and how well he's going to be able to make that kind of thing happen.
That's an interesting one, actually, because I guarantee you Frozen Dawn would tell you something completely different, being an Anivia main himself. I agree in the sense that I don't think Anivia classically lends herself to 2v2s, but if you are put into the situation where you putting them through a choke point and you land a double stun, Anivia's early game damage is ridiculous.
Yeah, that is true.
And especially comboed with a Rek'Sai, when you can combo the CC, they could maybe get 2v2s here that will work in their favor. But again, it's very skill shot dependent for Anivia. If you don't land your stun, you're in incredibly hot water because you've got nothing else to proc your Frost to be able to get the double damage on your Glacial Spikes. So I agree, I don't think Anivia would be your classic 2v2 champion, but there are scenarios where I think Anivia would be happy to skirmish in the early game, especially versus a Kassadin. I think there is potential here for TCA.
Yeah, I was about to bring up as well, like, obviously we're kind of poo-pooing Anivia's early game, but when you look at the other side of the board, Kassadin is well renowned for his abysmal early game, so to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised to see that be a little bit of a farm fest and both of them just searching for wraiths to kill in the meantime while they just bide their time and look towards the mid game. But we'll have to see. I mean, I was going to ask you like to talk to me through the compositions all rounded out. They have vanished off our screen though. I don't know how well you can remember the two compositions, but what do you expect the kind of game plan for these two teams to be?
So I think a lot of focus for Last Remedy should be on mid and top. I think if you give Risk It the early advantage versus Fiora, she will not come back, especially in any relevant timescale where she's going to be a credible threat to Rifty in the top lane. So I think a lot of pressure for jungle should go to top and mid lane, especially because Anivia really is that crux of the TCA composition, that if she gets rolling, if she gets ahead, then she has the potential to stop any all-in engages from the Echo and the Kassadin, and they can just completely wall off the support coming in from Last Remedy, and they could potentially win team fights. But you get Rifty ahead, you get Kassadin ahead, then there is this real issue for TCA where you can't split push because Fiora is going to get 1v1'd every time, and you don't have the levels, experience, gold, or items on the Anivia to have any meaningful threat during these all-ins when Curtain Call opens up. The bot lane, I think, is going to be pretty passive, to be honest. Braum will be defending Jhin for everything that he's worth. The kill potential probably lies more so with Last Remedy. I can't remember this. No, well, yeah, because Karma...
I think TCA with the Lucian Karma.
Yes, yeah, but Braum generally is alright at defending his AD carry versus Karma. You know, that wall can provide a real issue for Karma to try and break through. And also, you know, if you can block Light Slinger from Lucian, those double basic attacks, sometimes you just can't respond. And obviously, if you land any form of CC, if you land one of those Qs onto Karma, she becomes a real target. And obviously, the damage output of a Jhin Braum is very, very high. So I actually think there's a swing, you know, it's a swing matchup in the bot lane. A lot of it will come down to how each individual pairing plays it up. I don't expect to see too much pressure in, apart from maybe from TCA. Maybe we see Jet put pressure down in that bot lane, because if they start to get ahead, then they can rotate, take the turret very easily, put pressure onto Kassadin, allow Anivia a little bit of time and space. We could see that. So I think all of this is going to come down to me where the junglers decide to put their pressure. And I think it will come down to the junglers specifically too.
Okay, well, we'll have to wait and see. And I mean, that's one of the things that Jet did a very good job of last week, was being the one to really initiate things. He didn't just kind of sit back, and he was on that Rek'Sai as well last week. That is definitely a champion that he's thoroughly comfortable with, and he will be able to make things happen across the map. But it's down to whether or not that is going to be enough. And again, we kind of fall back to that storyline of TCA. They last week had these 5-man plays. They had this synergy working. They were all clearly on the same page, and clearly it wasn't obvious. It wasn't just coincidences. It wasn't just like, oh, there's an opportunity here, let's all go bot. It was like, this has clearly been planned. This is a practice strategy, and they've got it, like they're a well-oiled machine at this point. But GLB are not the same opponent as Last Remedy, and it's going to be whether or not they can pull those same strategies off against a team that's experienced that kind of scenario before.
The Last Remedy roster has the same hype that Manolite had coming into, you know, the last thing. We know about M&M. You know, M&M are a great roster. They're basically Manolite reincarnate. But this is a new roster coming through for Last Remedy. They have that same element of hype. Yeah. So, you know, they've got a big mountain to climb here, TCA, if they want to surprise us and take a win.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. But we are heading onto the Rift, ladies and gentlemen. The very first game of the second week of the UK Premiership is underway. Last Remedy on our blue side up against TCA over on our red side. This should be certainly an interesting matchup here, and I'm curious to see how this one is going to pan out, especially during this early game. Whether we do see some of these players play that more aggressive style in the early game, or whether we see them just kind of sit back, allow their carries to start to ramp up. So
already we see Yoppa pick up a Doran's Blade, which for me is super interesting. You very rarely tend to see that in the top lane anymore. Sometimes well, to be honest, everyone seems to go Corrupting Potion or Doran's Shield if you're playing a matchup which you feel like you're going to be the worst end of. Doran's Blade signifies to me that Yoppa wants to try and take advantage of things early. He wants to go aggressive onto Rifty before Rifty gets the ability to get all of his skills up and starts to have a little bit more dueling potential in his back pocket. But it does mean if he gets punished, he's going to get punished hard. His sustain kind of goes out the window. Yes, Fiora has got sustain built into her kit in an essence, but it's not as easy to proc that kind of sustain as it was previously. So the Doran's Blade start for me is a very big risk, but potentially high reward. Oh, Deadly!
Yeah, Deadly's in trouble here. He has been caught out, and they're going for the level 1 play. The crit comes through, nearly finishes him off, and that is going to be 2 summoners for 1. No matter the result in terms of kills, Last Remedy are going to be very happy with that one. And Deadly now has to go back to base at the worst possible moment.
Yeah, absolutely. This already gives a huge advantage to Toaster and Nutri in that bot lane. This is actually a tactic that a lot of Braums will bring out. Karmas do it as well, so I think they had to be at least aware that this was on the table right now for Last Remedy. It's a tactic that I think everyone was very used to when leveling up their League of Legends accounts. When you were the low-level games, they'd sit in that bot brush and try and catch you out. Well, it's kind of coming back now, because obviously people don't do those camps as often. They're a little bit harder to do and result in you taking a little bit more damage. So it's a good play here by Toaster and Nutri, and that gives them a huge advantage in this lane going forwards.
Yeah, we cannot really stress how much of an advantage this is as well, being able to get that early level 2 guaranteed. Even if Deadly and Raisins try and wave clear or whatever, there's literally no way that they can contest for this level 2 at this stage. So
no.
a very strong pickup for the bottom lane of Last Remedy. And
they need to be careful of a level 2 from Nutri and Toaster as well, because they're going to be looking to go straight in.
It's going to be the question whether or not they are going to be able to go for that all-in. Nice little bit of a disengage. Raisins obviously did head that level 2 as well, so they'd have the sustain from shields or the CC as well coming out from the bind. But generally speaking, they're doing okay. Jet already making some aggressive maneuvers down towards the bottom side.
Yeah, I was wondering if he was going to be counter-jungling the Graves and the red, given that he left his blue. But like I said, he looks to be making plays directly in this bot lane.
Here we go. He's going on to Toaster. Immediately flashes, but Nutri is going to be the target. Both flashes forced out of the Last Remedy bot lane for basically no cost to TCA. Nice little gank there.
Yeah, but look at Graves. What is he doing here? He's going to get spotted out by some nice wards, and it looks like they're going to realize he's going either towards the River Scuttler or the blue buff. I don't know whether Jet knows where he is right now, but we'll finally spot him out as he is now in the blue side jungle of TCA.
And I think Broxer realizes that this is not a fight that he wins right now. He doesn't have the support from his laners, and he is going to decide to back away.
Yeah, but actually the bot lane from Last Remedy did a really good job of pushing the lane up, forcing their ability to then move in as a unit to try and take this blue buff away. And that was all because it meant the Deadly and Raisins either had to deal with the minion wave or basically give the blue buff up. So Nutri and Broxer, very good play together, and a very good play from the bot lane of Last Remedy to push that wave up and then go for the invade. Yeah,
I was just saying how they wouldn't have the support from their laners, but immediately Last Remedy read that, push up the lane and make sure that they are going to be there for their jungler. And that means that Last Remedy on the first rotation managed to get a 3 buff over TCA. Very bad news for our boys in red, but in terms of gold difference, it's not too huge of a deal just yet, and we'll see if they can force something off of the back of this triple buff.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Krogson's taking a lot of damage from Zoran in lane, by the way. This is sometimes a matchup that Anivia might find hard, especially because when you use that Null Sphere, you get that magic damage shield, and often you won't be able to return in terms of damage output. I actually am interested to see now whether Deadly and Raisins can make use of this double flash gone, and whether Jet is going to try and capitalize on that, because he lost his buff for 2 flashes, so he's got 5 minutes to work on that and make something happen for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just trying to get the lights turned off because I'm melting.
I'm melting as well, my friend. I'm so glad. I'm actually going to have to take my jacket off because it is just that hot right now.
Absolutely. Well, here we go. Rifty going to be starting the fight. Or I suppose it's going to be Jet starting the fight as he heads on into the top lane there. But there's a nice little knock-up. Not going to be enough, though, as Broxer gets the first blood kill onto Jet. Yopper just has to dash over that wall and escape up towards his top lane once more. Bit of a 2v2 as well going on in the bottom lane, but neither team can really commit to that just yet.
Teleport comes back in from Krogson into the mid lane. I actually think Jet probably shouldn't be looking to capitalize top. If Fiora goes even, I would be happy with that situation as TCA. I would be happy if Fiora comes out even on that matchup. The real area that I think you need to look to exploit is that bot lane, because you took those flashes early. Jet basically went over aggressive in the top lane onto Rifty. You can see Yopper is having an okay time versus Rifty already. Yeah. And doesn't necessarily need the jungle support. If anything, he's going to be pulling jungle support from Broxer, which is a good thing. You pull it away from the bot side of the map, which is where I think you're going to get your mid-game advantage to allow yourself to win skirmishes and teamfights. Lucian is the king of mid-game skirmish teamfights. Absolutely, and
already you're starting to see a huge CS lead built up in that top lane. 20 CS. Nutri getting punished here by Raisins. Is going to be able to freeze that wave, though, and that was the important thing. It means that Toaster will get back and he will get that experience as the TCA bot lane are going to look to just try and push that one out. We are going to see a quick pause come on through, though. So I'm not 100% sure if it's one of the players having an issue here, perhaps with internet, but I mean, let's quickly talk about, again, this top lane advantage that has already started to build. Now Yopper has gone back. He's got himself a Tiamat. This is going to become a very, very obnoxious lane for Riskit.
Yeah, that's going to be very difficult. Not only will Fiora now be able to push more effectively against Riskit on the Echo, she's also going to be doing a little bit more damage as well, in terms of, obviously, the Tiamat gives you a small spike in the early game. So Riskit's going to be either push the turret consistently, or he's just going to be basically losing trades 24/7. He's actually had to go straight for what's going to be likely a Sunfire Cape build here. So he's actually going to be foregoing what you often see some early Echoes do and go for a Triforce. This is going to be full tank Echo in the top lane, just because he is losing already. And that's a very sensible decision by Rifty, because if you then pursued that Triforce build path, the way that you are just this far behind in CS, you're never going to hit it at a point where it becomes relevant in that point in the game. So going for the tank Echo build and allowing Graves to make up the damage, given that Graves' gold income is slightly higher, I think is a good decision from Rifty.
Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, the pause is due to a couple of TeamSpeak issues that are going on for one of the teams, so that should be resolved very quickly for you guys, and we should be able to get back into the game once again. But so far, this is actually looking very good for TCA. They've managed to get that lead in the top lane, and that Fiora we already mentioned is kind of a linchpin in their composition and will be very important. And across the board, they're actually doing all right. 10 CS lead in the mid lane as well, and just about even in that bottom lane, despite the massive advantage Last Remedy managed to achieve at level 1 using that Braum kind of bush bait that they managed to pull off. That's not really gleaned them much of an advantage.
Actually, it was because of the relief of pressure that Jet put down in that bot lane as well. Yeah. Jet basically managed to burn those 2 flashes, which always is going to put you in a defensive mindset when approaching your lane matchup. So we are actually back into game, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. I can stop sweating under the lights. Yeah,
we should be able to jump straight back onto Summoner's Rift and continue this game. Is the teleport going to come out from Yopper straight up into this top lane? He's tanking a few minions, but he's happy to go for the trade nonetheless. And we are going to see just both teams kind of backing away again, resetting once more. And now Jet going to be heading up towards his top lane. Yopper not having a good time though right now. He's incredibly low, but he manages to dodge the ultimate from Risk It. He's got the Grand Challenge on, but he's running out of HP, has to flash away, and Risk It is going to punish him. Jet arrives on the scene, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to finish off that top laner, and it's going to be the decision not to in the end. So unfortunately, Yopper going a little bit too deep on his own.
Yeah, I did not see what happened there, but Yopper somehow took 3/4 of his HP without actually managing to get much back onto Risk It. It just looked like he'd made a pretty unfavorable trade for himself, and despite some fancy mechanics, was unable to come out on top in that situation. And also the fact that Jet showed top is going to allow everybody from Last Remedy to consolidate and go for this very first Mountain Drake. So Mountain Drake picked up here, and actually isn't bad given their siege is pretty awful. If I'm completely honest, their siege isn't great. So once they get the ability to get onto a turret, they will be able to capitalize very quickly with this Mountain Drake. That will give them the better ability to push towers, especially versus an Anivia. The time is of the essence when you play against this type of composition.
Do you know, I hadn't thought about the specifics of this Kassadin-Anivia matchup, but the fact that Kassadin can interrupt Anivia's ultimate is so crucial. Every single time we see Croxon trying to clear the wave with his ultimate, you just see Zorian walk forward, press Q, and then just laugh as he strolls over.
It's even more relevant now because obviously the Anivia ultimate builds up in terms of area. So if you can interrupt it early, the wave clear is out the window for Anivia in that particular sense. So sometimes it's best to try and force that out by using your stun or your E, and then try to use your ultimate afterwards. But obviously as Kassadin progresses, that's going to be a lower and lower cooldown. Deadly.
Well, Deadly might be in a lot of trouble right now. He's looking for Toaster, but he went way too deep. Little bit of a misuse of Flash there. Nutri was around to get the exhaust in the end. And really nice team play from Last Remedy, but another 1v1 in the top lane. Yopper managing to walk straight on back into the stun.
Oh, Rifty with the outplay.
Disaster. I don't even know if that was an outplay or if that was Yopper just outplaying himself. The stun was down, it was visible, and then he walked into it.
It was a really good play from Rifty, but Yopper expected that bubble to drop a little bit earlier than it did, and therefore Rifty was able to just punish straight away. I think that was good play by Rifty, and also potentially poor play from Yopper. I also have to say to Deadly, another pause comes through, I have to say, Deadly right there probably could have used Relentless Pursuit to get out of the... Deadly Pursuit to get out of the curtain call from the Jhin. I'm actually, if we do come back onto camera, I apologize. I had to take off my suit jacket. It is just so hot under the studio lights.
It is quite warm. Unfortunately, we are going to see another pause coming on through. Apologies about this, ladies and gents.
As you can see, the non-ironed sleeves.
Disaster.
Disaster, everybody.
I'm a stickler for ironing the full shirt, even though I'm wearing a jacket and things. I'm bit of a... Maybe I'm just wasting my time.
No, you're not, because in these situations, you prepared for it. If you had to take your suit jacket off, you would be prepared to show off your...
Then I'd be away from my Premiership badge.
Do you know what? I can get my Premiership badge back. I'm just going to get it back for everybody.
Just hold it above. There it is.
Here we go.
Beautiful stuff.
I'm going to take the Premiership badge. Anyway, we should probably talk about the game.
Yeah, we should.
Despite my non-ironed...
League of Legends is happening, and so far, actually, despite last pause, we were saying how it was TCA that were managing to start to pull ahead of their opponents. This time, Last Remedy, they've got some kills under the belt now, and they've actually managed to accrue themselves a 2,000 gold lead.
Am I doing this smoothly, by the way?
Incredibly smoothly.
Am I doing it really smoothly? Production, can you give me a thumbs up if I'm doing this smoothly? They give me a thumbs down. I'm not doing this. It looks like I'm just sort of touching myself on the chest a little bit, but no, I'm good. There we go. We've got a Premiership badge in.
It's beautiful.
Height of professionalism, Scoundrel is back on the desk, everybody.
Here
But honestly, I think right now, a lot of this is coming down to individual mistakes and individual outplays in the lanes. Like, both in that bot lane and top lane, those situations potentially could have been avoided. Deadly had Relentless Pursuit up. He was very close to the edge of Curtain Call, could have Relentless Pursuited away.
Yeah.
I guess his thought was because Nutri had made that basically flanking position happen, he essentially thought there was going to be jungle backup as well, and his only chance was to go straight onto Jhin and try and get the kill there in that situation. In the top lane, though, like you said, walk straight into the bubble. Don't have your riposte available, get punished.
Yeah, that was... I'm not really sure what went through his head there in that fight, Yopper. But at the end of the day, everyone makes mistakes. So we are going to be jumping straight back onto the Rift once more. So fingers crossed the communication issues are resolved for good now. But it's going to be Croxon doing a good job of clearing the minions in this mid lane. But Zoran, now that he's got his Rift Walk, he has the ability to punish Croxon when he goes for those long channels. And
he went for the blasting one first as well, which means he's able to put a pressure onto an Anivia with a tier only, and that's why you're seeing Croxon have a really tough time now. Post 6 against Zyron. Like we said, post 6, Anivia doesn't have the potential to deal with Kassadin very well. It's all about that pre-6 ability to punish him, the fact that he's melee. So right now, Zyron's going to have the better of the situation, especially because we've gone for a double mana build here from Anivia. So you're essentially saying, I don't want to be relevant for the next 15 minutes. I'm going to be waiting a very long time to come online.
Well, here we go. Broxah has been caught here. It's support and jungle versus support and jungle, but the exhaust comes out onto Broxah. Jet has to flash away as Zoran has arrived on the scene, and Raisins has been left out to dry. But he will be able to just about escape. It's not going to be a prune on this one. But it does mean that they completely concede control of that dragon area. Rift Scuttler will go that way, but Yopper just about escaping another duel with Rifty, who is really starting to pull ahead now.
Hey, he's got the Sheen because he is doing so well. He decided that he could sit on the Balmy Cinder. Deadly's going to take a lot of damage.
Oh, Deadly just gets deleted there. Brox are doing so much, and then the Curtain Call will finish things off from Toaster 1, 2, 3. He gets himself a second kill already. Start to pull ahead in CS as well. And this is all starting to look pretty fine and dandy when you're talking from Last Remedy's perspective.
I also like Rifty's choice to go for the Iceborne Gauntlet. That's going to give him huge dueling potential versus Yopper. Yopper, wow!
Oh my goodness, that is going to be a beautiful little chrono break once again. And we don't see Rifty losing these 1v1s basically ever.
Yeah.
Yopper cannot proc all 4 of those Grand Challenge Vitals. He cannot get that heal up, and he keeps on just getting punished for it.
And especially with this Sheen, the ability for Rifty to just do way more damage in most situations now versus Yopper, who's only sat on that Tiamat and Vampiric Scepter at this point in time. Once that Iceborne Gauntlet's up, expect Yopper to have literally no chance. I think maybe I would have liked to see Yopper invest in some early null magic mantles just to give him that extra little bit of sustainability, because you can always build that into something relevant later on, like Mercury Treads if you really want to, or even down a Hex Drinker route. Even if you're playing up against an AD-heavy Echo, a lot of his damage comes through in terms of magic damage. I would have liked to potentially see a null magic mantle earlier on here. It might have given him the edge in these pretty close duels that we've been seeing between the two, but right now, there is no way back for Yopper.
Well, Yopper might just be in trouble here. I think he did spot Nutri as he got in the brush, and he will be able to get away with his life. Toaster trying to capitalize on this Fiora player, but not going to be able to find that opportunity just yet. A nice little wall from Croxon does force the Rift Walk out of Zoran. But actually, Zoran looking to go aggressive as well. I really like the positioning from Zoran there, just to force Croxon away, deny a little bit of CS if he can. And just, it almost was like pretending that his jungler was nearby.
So, TCA looking to make the classic bait and switch happen here, but it doesn't look like Last Remedy are going to fall for it. In fact, Last Remedy are going to walk straight over a pink ward and identify to TCA that they have moved. And all TCA have done here is put their bot lane a little bit further behind and also allowed Rifty to push into that bot lane more effectively as well. Curtain Call comes through.
It certainly does. They're going to be dodging bullets left, right, and center. Although Jet isn't going to be in, the collateral damage blasts him straight onto the Crystal Scar. Or maybe it does. Maybe he's just going to respawn here on Summoner's Rift, but we'll have to wait and see for that one. But Yopper now in 2 versus 1 if he sticks around. Has been spotted by that ward. He's going to know that the red buff is being contested, but the smite is available for Broxah. They're looking to escape. Nice little smoke screen. It's going to mean that Croxon can't do anything as soon as he teleports in. And again, Last Remedy managed to take something without being punished.
Yeah, I almost feel like TCA's reactions at this point in time is like a dog with a limp. You always feel like they're just one step behind, and you feel a little bit sorry for them in situations. Like that teleport there, you knew as soon as it was teleport challenged that nothing was going to come of it. But you could see that they were just trying to react in such a defensive manner. And already you see Toaster and Broxer just pushing onto this top lane turret. Rifty unchallenged on that bot lane tier 2. His ability to get ahead has given him such prowess now, especially going 1v1 versus Deadly. I expect Deadly to be pushed out considerably, and Rifty should be very quickly racking another turret up in his name.
They certainly should be. And this turret in the top lane will be going down to the likes of Last Remedy, who've extended their gold lead now to 5,000, a dramatically different gold lead to what we were talking about just 5 minutes ago. And they're really starting to pull themselves ahead. TCA, they've got to start to look towards the late game at this stage.
Oh, there's literally no way. They've done so awfully in the laning phase that this is exactly what you said. Last Remedy are going to get ahead in the laning phase. It looked so promising for TCA at the start, but that little misplay, I would say, in the top lane that allowed Jet or allowed Riskit to get a little bit of gold in his back pocket with an assist, it just meant that he wasn't able to capitalize on burning 2 flashes early on in the bot lane, and they weren't able to get any further ahead here. But now Rifty.
Yeah, Rifty is in a 2v1, but I don't think he minds all too much. Deals a fair portion of damage, will be able to get away. But that pressure has meant that the rest of his team can start to do some damage to this mid lane tower as well. And I think that's important that they can just chip away at that tower, because you're against an Anivia. It's never going to be easy to just straight up go for that siege with the amount of wave clear.
Especially with the double mana build, it's going to be harder and harder to push her out of lane, and now she's got blue buff. You have to take those opportunities where you can get them. That's why I think the first Mountain Drake was so important in this situation, because like you said, you take those timing opportunities when you can get them. The extra damage that you can deal to turrets and structures, the better it is for you. Especially given that against the Anivia, unless you're all-inning under turret, your siege is not going to be fantastic. My only worry now for TCA is that they had 2 win conditions. You get Anivia ahead, so that she can deal with the all-in engage and try and block off and force a 4 versus 3. Or you have a Yopper to a point where he is uncontrollable in the split push. Well, that Yopper win condition has already failed. You know, unless you're going to somehow bring a massive turnaround 1v1 versus Rifty, you don't have the ability right now to split push effectively as Fiora. And Krogson is the last real hope, I would say, for TCA, but he hasn't shut down Zweiren, and he's not exactly accelerating ahead either, but he is even, and that is a silver lining at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to need to be a pretty hefty one, but we'll see if he can continue to maintain this at least neutral stance right now in the mid lane, or whether it's going to be Last Remedy starting to capitalize, starting to spread the wealth across their team and start to boost Zoyurin ahead of his lane opponent. But that is going to be the Dragon going down as well to Last Remedy. Second Mountain Drake now.
Wow, second Mountain Drake. That's going to be very hard, especially at this point in the game for TCA to defend against the siege. Toaster will be doing ridiculous damage to turrets at this point in time. I also want to point out the build path of Zweiren. He's going for, I think, a Lichbane now. That really identifies what Last Remedy are trying to do.
Yeah.
They are bursting and blowing somebody up, and here comes a singular identification of that.
Yeah, well, Croxon going to be the one that they're trying to start this fight onto, but they don't connect too many of the shots from Curtain Call. Risk it, going very deep for this one, trying to get onto Deadly. He might just be able to finish off the kill. Exhaust goes down onto the AD carry, but they can't finish off the stun. Chrono Break has to be used, and Risk it cannot finish off the kills. Croxon flashes forward just to finish off Nutri, but it's going to be a support traded for a top laner as Yopper finds himself 1 versus 3. And now Rifty might have just found himself a little bit of turkey to nibble away at. Well, he's going to be able to actually get that re-engage there. Croxon, I think, stayed a little bit too long for that one. Maybe thought that he was in a better position than he was, but here we go. The rest of the team going to be coming to back this one up, and there goes Raisins as well. 2 more kills, and mid-tower as well. This is falling apart for TCA.
The problem for TCA is when you get in those situations where Curtain Call is opening up and then you split, you become prey for Last Remedy. They have great 1v1 duelists in the form of Echo and Castin, and even Graves to an extent. When you split up, you just become like little ants that Last Remedy need to step on. You need to stay grouped and try and play around your Anivia if you want to try and deal with the engage coming out from Last Remedy. The problem is that Fiora has never done particularly well in teamfight scenarios unless she's miles ahead. and everybody just ran away from each other. You need to be grouped, you need to make most use of that Karma Shield and acceleration that it gives you, and also the fact that the zone control coming out from Krogson can prevent those melee-heavy engagers getting on top of your team. But they just didn't play it the way that they needed to, and they split off and got picked off.
Yeah, they certainly did, and they're starting to really, really struggle when you look at the gold numbers right now. 9,000? No, I can't count. That's not 9,000. That is... No. Maths isn't going to be my friend today, I don't think. 8,000 gold behind right now. 8,500. It was almost 9,000. I tried. But yeah, they are falling significantly behind in terms of that cash right now. And Rifty doing a fantastic job to just force Yopper away from any kind of CS at this stage.
And Broxton now the target here for Deadly.
Yeah, nice little jump from Nutri, going to block the culling, and Deadly's found himself on the wrong side of the enemy team. He goes down, Jet's going to follow. Yopper isn't long for this world either. The curtain call will come out, and actually, perfect target selection by Toaster. He's going to find Raisins. The final crit comes through, and that is going to be the triple kill for Zoiran. Suddenly, Crocs finds himself all alone in the world.
Yeah. That was just because of how far TCA are ahead right now. Actually, sorry, rather Last Remedy are ahead right now. TCA potentially could have found a good turnaround in that situation. Had they even had Krogson with them, it may have even been less dominant than it was from Last Remedy. But as you can see, there is just nothing they can do. The single target burst potential from both Rifty and Zoiran is out of this world. And this all became because Yogs thought he could again 1v1 Rifty in that kind of top lane matchup. The problem is that he doesn't have the damage to burst Rifty, so the more time he spends in melee range, the more he's going to get burnt by that Sunfire Cape, which, hey-ho, believe it or not, is magic damage, and maybe null magic mantle still would have been a good idea. And obviously, every time that 3 hit comes out from Rifty, he's going to be dealing massive amount. Back towards Yopper. He just doesn't have the damage to deal with it right now. Zoiran actually gets away with the pink ward right there.
Yeah, I mean, getting away with the recall there, I don't know whether they necessarily need to have been checking that bush anyway. I think he probably should have got away with that recall, but certainly, in hindsight, going to be a bit of a pain to watch for TCA, having known that they were that close to finding themselves a pick. But 5-0-1 right now on Zoiran, and can you remember a couple of minutes ago, Kiernan, we were saying, you know, Krogson is the silver lining right now. The fact that he is even with the enemy mid laner. Well,
not anymore.
Zoiran managed to get himself a triple kill in that last fight, and he is miles ahead. 10 stacks already on his Soul Stealer.
Yeah, and actually because of how far Karma is...
Oh, goodbye, Yopper.
Yeah. Because of how far Karma is behind, you know, a Locket would have been would have been ideal to have right now, but just not able to get the gold in the bank to try and finish it. Locket is basically the key item you needed as a support versus this composition. It's just not going to be coming anytime soon. So, I mean, this is just a difficult situation for TCA. Maybe my predictions were off, Munch. Maybe you were completely right that they're just Last Remedy are just dominant in this group, just beyond all reach in terms of what they can do as a team.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited to see what the teams from Group B are going to be able to do against Last Remedy, because right now it feels like they are kind of head and shoulders above the rest of Group A. Well, obviously we've talked about there is that Manalite squad. On the other side, Jet has found himself in a 1v1 that he just cannot win. Zoiran grabs himself another kill, but there we go. The grand challenge does come out. Yopper is not going to be... Yes, he can finish it, and he gets the heal. This is maybe the 1v1 he's looking for against Riskit. He might finally be able to take this one. No mana on the Echo, and Yopper jumps back in. Terrible decision right there. Double kill comes through for Graves, and now Toaster with a nice little flash over the wall will survive. Deadly's found himself with a beautiful little crit. What was that damage? And he might be able to turn it into a second one onto Nutri as well. The stun does come out, but there's an auto kill from Krogson. And after all of that, it's a 3-for-3. I can't believe how evenly that fight went.
I think there was more because Rifty had literally 0 mana as well in that kind of situation. So, to believe it or not, with this Sunfire Cape Iceborne build, you do need mana to make it work. You need to be able to proc your skills to get the hits on the Iceborne Gauntlet. And once he teleported in, and eventually the fact that Kassadin went down and gave the heal to Fiora, he realized there was no way he was going to fight 1v1 because he just didn't have the mana to deal with Fiora. So he would just continuously have his vitals proc and wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And it was all because basically one by one Last Remedy flooded in. They went into a position where Anivia thrives. Anivia thrives in enclosed positions where actually the terrain is doing a lot of the blocking for her.
Well, the Dragon has been stolen away here by TCA. They managed to get that one on the back of that last team fight, but at what sacrifice? Because Zoiran Just 50-0'd Deadly right there. Instant death coming out from him, and now Rifty is just pushing out so much pressure onto the support of TCA. This is the zone control we were talking about from Croxon, but it just doesn't matter. Rifty is basically invincible at this stage. Jet's going to be chased away by Zoran. In the meantime, Croxon's been found. He goes into Egnivia, but it's not going to be enough to keep him alive. Rifty gets yet another kill. Zoran actually in trouble there. Takes a huge burst of damage from Yopper. But in the end, another couple of kills go the way of Last Remedy. It's an Infernal Drake though, so again, silver linings for TCA, but they need more than just silver linings.
They need more than silver linings, and this probably is more like a dull grey lining because they still lose the inhibitor off the back of that as well. This is awful for TCA because there's a couple of reasons why Last Remedy are going to be so far ahead for a long period, even if TCA have a potential to come back. I don't really see it. No one's prioritized magic defense, but that's because you actually have to think about armor as well, and you can see that from Jet. He feels like most of his threat because he doesn't feel like either Rifty or Zoiran are going to be focusing him, which is probably a fair assumption to make. He needs the armor to be able to tank up against Broxer and Toaster, who, by the way, both have 4 kills to their name as well. So you have this double-fed damage sources coming through from Last Remedy, and you just don't have the money to prioritize defense because you need the damage on the Anivia for wave clear. You need the damage on Deadly to have any form of potential to duel in a team fight. Yopper thinks he needs the damage as well, whereas I actually probably would have been more content to see him pick up some defense early on. However, they all feel like they need the damage to be able to contend in some sort of miracle turnaround team fight. They can't prioritize the defense that they need. Aegis has only just been finished at 25 minutes into the game, and that's still a long way off from becoming a locket too. So it's really, really tough for TCA. Last Remedy have just strangled the gold out of them. It gets to a point when you're analyzing games, Munch, where you can say all of you want, but just the gold difference means so much more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean 12,000 right now. It's the difference we're looking at. I mean, just simply looking at the kills, often it's not the important factor in a game, but in this one specifically, 21-4 in favor of Last Remedy. That is a huge discrepancy. And as well, towers. TCA haven't yet got a tower. They haven't actually managed to make any progress into Last Remedy's side of the map. I think the only time they've been in that side of the jungle is when Jet got that level 2 gank. Look at the damage again out of Zoran. Forces the flash out of Croxon. Deadly's so low and does get a really nice flash on the collateral damage. But now Yopper has found himself all alone once again. Or in fact, it's Rifty that's on his own. The rest of his team is finally arriving. Chrono Break still available, so he will survive. And now Jet went a little bit too deep. Croxon wisely cancels the teleport there. And it is going to be another tower and potentially another inhibitor.
Yeah, I wouldn't really think... Oh my word, Raisins gets deleted by Zwyron. And you can see that the build they've gone for is all about that ability to blow up a singular target. It's the Duskblade on Toaster's Jhin. It's the Lich Bane on Zwyron's Kassadin. It's all about the ability to jump in, deal with one target that is your biggest priority, which for the most part would probably be Anivia. But because of the way these team fights are playing out, because they're so disjointed, you are just seeing them target anybody and everybody.
Absolutely. Yopper is going to get locked up there, as we are going to see Last Remedy looking for this Baron, but in the end, I don't see any way that this is going to be contested. Zoiran is actually in a 1v1 that he cannot win. Yopper wins that one out in the end, but it's a kill for a Baron. Last Remedy still taking an advantage out of the situation. And with the Baron, with the mid lane inhibitor down, the side lanes are going to be wide open for the pushes from Last Remedy. Is there any way that TCA can even find a way back in now?
I would love to tell you that there is, Munch, but there probably isn't. It's this awful situation where I could make up some rubbish reason that they could potentially find their way back out in like a lottery chance type situation. But when things like this are happening and your AD carry is getting blown up within 2 hits from both the top laner, probably the jungler, probably the AD carry, and probably the mid lane, you don't stand very much chance in terms of getting back. The only way they make this happen is that they somehow have a drawn-out team fight on a siege in the bot lane where they're defending with the wave clear of Glacial Storm and the turrets do most of the work for them. But even then, you still have the mid lane inhibitor down. You still probably won't be able to clear the minions very quickly, even with Glacial Storm, because of the Baron. It's such a difficult situation for TCA. I almost feel like this is just reset, GG, go next.
Yeah, maybe start to think about what can be changed moving on into the next game. What can they do differently in that early game so that they can actually find themselves in a position where they can fight later on.
Last Remedy seemed to, they told us beforehand, you talked to Nutri, they had their plans up their sleeve about how to deal with TCA. They look like they're trying to exploit the fact that Krogson likes these control-heavy mages, and they look like they have the type of...
Oh my goodness, the damage from Curtain Call and collateral damage combined goes on through. Jet's in trouble and will get deleted by Zoirin. There goes another tower, there goes another inhibitor as well in a second, and there might go Krogson at this rate as he does get popped into his egg bomb. Nutri jumps forward and looks for a stun, but it's going to be Rifty in the top lane who finds himself yet another 1v1. Raisins is suddenly alone on the map, just a singular support with nowhere to go. Zoirin almost go for the fountain dive there just to try and finish off that kill, but it is going to be the Nexus going down here, and it is going to be the first game in this best of 3 going the way of Last Remedy in an incredibly one-sided fashion.
Yeah, there's not much more that you can say to it. They played their lanes better. I feel like there was a